At a lavish ball, where a whirlwind of elegant gowns and the glitter of exquisite jewelry created a unique atmosphere, Serena engaged in an intriguing dialogue with an arrogant aristocrat. Their words intertwined in the air, creating an aura of sophistication and mystery. However, the sudden turn of events attracted the attention not only of the participants of the conversation. The red-haired Olivia, like a whirlwind of passion, suddenly intervened in the conversation. She took the aristocrat's hand and did not ask him to dance, but magically gave him a dance. They, like a pair of waltzing stars, plunged into a whirlwind of dance, leaving a surprised Serena behind. Serena, watching the aristocrats having fun despite the suddenness of the events, exhaled quietly. Her eyes flashed with the assertion that perhaps this was exactly what was supposed to happen. This whole ball was like a theater, with each character playing a different role, creating a unique performance. Suddenly, her peace was broken by Ricardo, who recognized the party as somewhat boring. With a polite smile, he held out his hand to Serena, asking her to dance. Serena, however, maintaining her individuality, waved away the invitation. Her eyes met Ricardo's, and she firmly declared that dancing was not her interest. At this point, music played, as if to accompany her decision, and the evening continued, leaving a trail of mystery and luxury behind it. Serena, keeping her expression unwavering, felt Ricardo's pitying face fail to change her mind. She was convinced that his advances could not touch her indifferent heart. However, Ricardo, being insistent and gallant, decided to take her hand as well, pressing her lips to his. Serena was taken aback by this unexpected gesture. Ricardo, like a cavalier, declared with tenderness in his voice that he intended to make Serena's heart flutter under his influence. Her gaze flashed back, impressed by his words. In that moment, time seemed to slow its run, and Serena's heart, despite rumors that she had no heart, spoke its secret language. With a slight smile, Serena suddenly gave her consent to Ricardo. However, they hadn't headed to the dance floor yet. This moment was like an invitation into the world of their own secret history, which was just beginning. They continued to stand in the shadows, where luxury and mystery merged in an incredible waltz, emphasizing the singularity of the evening. Under the magic of the violins, Ricardo expressed his gratitude to Serena for her favor. In response to his words, she modestly remarked that she was not very good at dancing. However, the sounds of violins, like a magic veil, gave their movements a rhythmic waltz beat, turning this moment into a real fairy tale. Under the melodic charm of the music, Ricardo and Serena twirled in a waltz like heroes of a romantic work. Finally, Serena, immersed in the magic of the moment, inquired about the name of her mysterious companion. Ricardo answered that his name was Ricardo Arena, but suggested that she call him simply Rico. Serena, keeping her sternness, stared at him and called him by his full name, as if she wanted to reveal all the secrets of this mysterious world. And then, in an instant, she took the initiative, twirling the boy so that he seemed to be at her mercy. Looking into his face, she asked a question that sounded like an echo of his promise to make her heart flutter. In that instant, their dance became a symbol of upheaval, as if the gender roles in this waltz were intertwined and played out in their own dance of passion and mystery. Looking at Ricardo, Serena suddenly realized that she had agreed to this dance despite her initial skepticism, just for this amazing moment. As they talked, however, it seemed to her that Ricardo didn't know anything important or secret. This confirmed her doubts, and she resolutely let go of his hand, preparing to return to her musings in the shadows of the dance floor. However, Ricardo, as if to keep her from leaving, suddenly grabbed her hand. He uttered cryptic words that he wanted to give Serena back her own heart. At that moment, the sounds of violins seemed to intensify their magic, and a mysterious aura hung in the air. Ricardo said he was sure he could find Serena's lost heart. The words were like a magic spell, and suddenly Serena thought she could feel her heart beating, even though she really didn't have a heart. At that moment, she felt something inside her respond to his words. It was like coming back to life, and she began to realize that the mysterious Ricardo might hold the key to her own inner world. Serena, having an epiphany that her heart hasn't been beating in her chest for a long time, has taken to grading her memories. 2 years in this world, filled with tumultuous events, and all her efforts are focused on one goal: finding her lost heart. Under the pretext of completing the conquest that began 2 years ago, she decided to return to the places where her destiny took a new turn. Ariana, the kingdom where it all began, became the center of her attention. Serena searched every corner of this magical world for her heart, but she found not the slightest trace of her inner life in this kingdom. The places that remembered her first steps seemed to refuse to give up the secret they held. The man, the only one Serena had trusted with her secret, stood by her side. He discouraged her from continuing her search, saying it was better to keep the secret between them. In a world where there was already so much gossip about Serena's diabolical powers, she realized that society wasn't ready for the truth. The mood around her was becoming increasingly tense, and secrets that seemed supernatural would only be a corrupting mirror in the eyes of those around her. Still unable to find her heart, Serena decided that perhaps the answer lay not in the search, but in the acceptance. She concluded that it was better to forget about the lost organ and just enjoy what she had left, the incredible power that made her truly unique. Living happily with this unimaginable power had become her priority. Serena, who had survived centuries of battles and injuries that would have ruined any ordinary human, retrieved a random sword. She pondered, realizing that her fate was probably predestined to be fought with her own unbridled powers. The sword was an integral part of her essence, an embodiment of the vast battles and momentary dangers that were hers. There was a tone of sadness in her musings. She thought about the fact that she might have to wander this world forever, despite her invulnerability. The powers she possessed made her immortal, but lonely at the same time. The thought that she could remain for tens of thousands of years, disconnected from the mortals around her, enveloped her like a shadow. Serena pulls out not only her sword, but her soul as well, exploring the depths of her inner world. In this moment of longing, when she is lost in a pool of sadness, Ricardo appears. Suddenly he declares that he knows her secret and can help her find her lost heart. Ricardo's words sound like a ringing comfort in Serena's heart, upsetting her equilibrium and causing her to lift her gaze, full of hope and longing for a return to her humanity. Serena, who had lived through centuries of putting all her strength and skill into countless battles, suddenly pinned Ricardo against the wall, grabbing him by the throat. This was something unusual for her. Usually such aggression was unnecessary, but now something was different. The secret of her heart was known to her only by herself and Eric, and the fact that a prince from a foreign land had this information made Serena angry and resentful. Under the light of the moon creating unrealistic hues on her bronze armor, Serena declared that she demanded to know how Ricardo knew about her heart. Her eyes glittered like steel blades, and her cold gaze pierced Ricardo, making him feel the weight of her anger. In response to her questions, Ricardo apologized, but suddenly he was bathed in a blue flame that, strangely, didn't burn. It was a riddle, a question that demanded an answer. Serena let go of him while maintaining her inner strength and looked questioningly at the guy. "Who are you, really?" she asked. His abilities, similar to her own, made her feel that he was no mere mortal, yet she could feel his pulse, his living essence. Against all odds, Ricardo had a heart. Ricardo, his throat constricting from Serena's hand, begged her to calm down, promising to tell her everything she needed to know. About 10 years ago, in the vastness of Arena, Ricardo had experienced an incredible event. A mysterious picture spread before him, a human heart glowing with a mysterious purple light. The heart radiated something unimaginable, and despite his amazement, Ricardo dared to touch the mysterious organ. At that moment, something unimaginable pierced him. It was as if he had been pulled into a dark abyss, a place he had never noticed before. Before him, as if dead, lay the dragon. Ricardo felt his body make its way toward the ominous cave. Hunger swallowed him, and he realized he had nothing to eat in this place but the dragon's corpse. Despite the despair and the burning pain in his throat, Ricardo devoured the rotten meat of the mythical creature. With the first sip, his eyes darkened, and as he woke up, he felt incredibly powerful, realizing that he now possessed the ability to control the blue flame. Having regained his strength, Ricardo, surrounded by mystical blue flames, left the mysterious caves in only a week. As soon as he made his way out into the light, the clear azure sky opening before him, he realized that his destiny was now intertwined with something greater than simply living in the dark corners of the world. In that glowing light, he felt alive again, ready for new adventures. Not a couple of years later, he returned to Arena, where every stone, every shadow seemed familiar after a long absence. When Ricardo returned to his hometown, he realized that the old world hadn't changed that much, but the forces that now resided in him made him see things differently. Rumors quickly spread through the city that the Duchess of Crovia, the noble and mysterious Serena, had come to Arena. It was said that she was looking for something important that could change the course of events in their world. Ricardo, hearing these stories, realized that Serena was searching for his heart, the very thing that had given him the ability. Flaming with her blue light, Ricardo became an observer, hiding in the shadows and feeling the great destinies intertwining. He was ready for new challenges, for his adventures had only just begun, and with them, the ancient magic that underpinned their world came alive again. Serena exploded her bewilderment at the questions, showering them on Ricardo like a flurry of spring drops. Her anger-fueled voice lashed out like a lurking thunderstorm wind. Serena's face was shrouded in a forward-looking gloom that reflected the depths of her soul. She waited for answers like the harbinger of a storm, and patience was far from her strong suit. Ricardo, standing in front of her like a tree in a thunderstorm, did not lose his equanimity. His eyes remained calm, like a quiet sunset that illuminates the stained skies. He listened silently to every question, like an old sage ready to share the secrets of the ages. Ricardo knew that the answers to those questions remained in his memory like ancient scrolls, unraveled only when fate pushed for it. When the question of Serena's heart left his lips, Ricardo began to unravel the web of secrets that bound him to this ancient legend. His words sounded like the melody of an ancient epic bursting out of temporal conclusions. He mentioned the coat of arms of his homeland, where the dragon was a symbol of strength and antiquity. They reflected pride mixed with mystery, like a scroll read only by the chosen few. Arena, the kingdom of my homeland, is founded on an ancient friendship with the dragons, Ricardo said, like a history keeper recounting his ancestral epic. Legend has it that the founder of the kingdom gave her heart to the dragons as a sign of devotion. In return, they enriched her with incredible powers that became the foundation of Arena's power. Serena, her passion surging inside, clutched the wall behind Ricardo's back. Her hand seemed to wrap around the steel support, like the root of an old tree that held the whole forest together. Her anger and surprise intertwined like a swirl of spring wind tearing the last leaves from the branches. Serena had heard the legend before, like an echo of antiquity, but now, standing beside Ricardo, she realized it was more than just a tale. Her heart, involuntarily drawn closer to the dragon, confirmed the ancient wisdom. The mystery of her origins became alive, as if woven into the threads of time. Serena, as if ignited by a torch of adventure, was about to travel to Arena to dig into her past and uncover all the secrets that remained eclipsed in it. Ricardo, raising his hand like a towering diplomat, played his card in this unexpected game. His smile was like a ray of sunshine penetrating the clouds of misunderstanding. He said he had one more question, like the host of a mystery show where the answers lay in the most unexpected places. Ricardo's suggestion took Serena by surprise. Her eyes widened like flowers at midnight, illuminated by a sudden light. Ricardo's words sparkled in the air like a gem, creating an effect of captivating surprise. Serena, as if in a stupor, questioned, as if checking her own ears to make sure she'd heard correctly. Serena, holding back her inner contempt by an effort of will, jabbed a finger at Ricardo's chest as if to indicate the unexpected turn this conversational duel was taking. Her question hung in the air like a sword sharp and ready for battle. She asked, a tone of incredulity and mockery mingling in her voice, if Ricardo would take her as his wife in exchange for the secret she held in her heart. Like a skilled dancer, Ricardo took Serena's hand and placed it on his cheek. His words were like a warm wind stroking a storm. He stated that he was only asking, as if offering to dance on the edge of mystery and passion. There was the gleam in his eyes of a man who knew how to play the complex games of fate, and he waited for Serena to allow him to be her husband in this dance of life. Lorne Haynes, with a temper, unceremoniously tossed a freshly published newspaper in front of Serena, which, as it turned out, revealed the amazing story of how Serena, at last night's ball, had kidnapped Prince Ricardo, taking him to a mysterious balcony. Lorne's eyes burned with indignation, like a flame of seething indignation. At that moment, the room was tense, like electrified air. Lorne, a devoted supporter of nobility and tradition, couldn't stand the idea that her friend could behave so shamelessly at a public event. She raised her eyebrows and looked sternly at Serena. "What is this absurd story, Serena?" Lorne stated, as if speaking to a troublemaker of universal order. "On the balcony with the prince. You know the rules, don't you?" Serena, for her part, responded to this look with a careless smile in which one could discern notes of sarcasm and arrogance. "Oh, Lorne, you're so emphatic. Haven't you heard that single people are supposed to have a little fun too? We're not in the last century, are we?" Lorne, not understanding her friend's sarcasm, exclaimed, "We should sue that paper for false gossip. It's so unfair that you're being credited with such improprieties. As an heiress, you should use your position for good and not indulge in idle pleasures." Serena only laughed, as if nothing could hurt her. Her laughter was reminiscent of the glistening waves of crashing sea surf. Lorne, you're so serious. Perhaps you should learn to enjoy life without too many restrictions. After all, I'm only adding some spicy colors to this gray world." Serena turned to Lorne with a question that clearly smoldered with the fire of curiosity in her eyes. She put an unspeakable sense of importance into her words, as if she were revealing an ancient secret. Lorne's attention was fixed on Serena, as if she were a guide to a world full of mystery and mystery. Lorne raised her eyebrows and inquired curiously about Serena's reasons for coming to her. Serena took a deep breath and replied evasively that she had a question about the history of ancient times, a question she could not keep silent about. It was as if she were bowing before the great keeper of knowledge. Lorne shrugged her shoulders and asked, somewhat surprised, why the girl needed such information. Serena responded with an enigmatic smile and a statement that she just wanted to be culturally enlightened, as if she were on a fascinating journey through the forgotten pages of the past. Lorne, determined to satisfy her companion's curiosity, began to recount a legend that she said was part of Lorne's specialty in the history of ancient times. She described how the founder of Arena had given her own heart to a dragon in exchange for powerful forces. Lorne didn't hold back that the story seemed absurd, but it was all she could tell. The focus was now shifted to Serena, and Lorne demanded answers. She suggested that Serena tell her about leaving with Prince Ricardo yesterday. Serena, remaining cryptic, replied that nothing much had happened and the prince had simply proposed to her. All this seemed to unfold on the theater stage, where every word and movement gave the story an atmosphere of mystery and intrigue, making the viewer fully immersed in what was happening. Under the sparkling moonlight, in the embrace of the night, Ricardo, with a satisfied expression on his face, gently pressed Serena's palm against his cheek. In that moment, like a magical fairy tale, he had decisively asked her to marry him. However, Serena, being somewhat more realistic, only noted that Ricardo was talking some ridiculous nonsense. She took her hand away tiredly, emphasizing that this romantic moment was too fantastical. Meanwhile, inside her thoughts, Serena couldn't help but notice that she had almost succumbed to the influence of Ricardo's sweet face. Meanwhile, the prince himself was confident that his proposal of marriage was sure to resonate with Serena. After all, he thought, after telling her about the adventure and finding her heart, she would go to Arena to find her own heart. Serena's words confirmed his expectations, and Ricardo, with a slight smile, argued that she wouldn't make it. However, the anger in Serena's eyes indicated her bewilderment at Ricardo's distrust. In his story, Prince shared how from the moment he found his heart and got out of the mysterious cave he was pulled into, his mother began a series of experiments. It was all aimed at creating soldiers with the same powerful abilities that he possessed, all so that the kingdom of Arena would have an army capable of standing up to the powerful Duchess Serena. Every day of Ricardo's life was a torture, where every moment was filled with pain and heaviness. His years of existence became a darkness full of suffering as he became the powerless victim of countless experiments. Within these walls of patience and fortitude, Ricardo worked his way through trials that left a deep mark on his soul. The experiments, thankfully, only came to an end when Ricardo lost his dragon powers. The war that had been raging around him had come to an end, but the price that had to be paid had been high. Now, free from the shackles of experimentation, Ricardo witnessed the end of the storm that had once raged in his life. Arena, once a battlefield, now appears in a new light. It has become the Queen's private residence, a place no one has the right to approach. These lands have gained an inviolability that even Arena herself cannot set foot in without special permission. The castle, like a guardian of indestructibility, carries with it the secrets of the past and the dramas left behind. At the moment of truth, when Ricardo was bringing out his marriage proposal as if it were the key to change, Serena intervened, interrupting his flow of certainty. She immediately dismissed his words, claiming Ricardo had lied to her about losing his dragon powers. Serena remembered that moment when the blue fire sparkled in his eyes as she, a soul stirring with mixed emotions, choked him. There was truth in her eyes, and she wasn't ready to believe his altered claims. Ricardo, with a visible admission of his deception, confirmed Serena's words. He explained that only by lying about the loss of his powers could he avoid the new tortures and experiments that tormented his soul. Smiling, he turned his gaze back to Serena, raising the question of possibly uniting their lives in marriage. Serena, with her silence, remained an enigma. Her gaze rose in response, like a reflection of her inner musings. In the emotion-filled silence, their fates hung in the balance, and each of Serena's silences seemed like an unanswered question. Sitting at the table at tea with Lorne, Serena thought strategically about her next moves like a chess player. Her mind flashed over whether she should play Ricardo's game, playing along with his feelings, knowing she could always use his weaknesses and mistakes to her advantage. She could feel the power she had in her hands, and it gave her a sense of control over the situation. And then, with a sudden movement, Serena turned to Lorne like a bolt of lightning piercing the silence. Lorne, startled by this surprise, froze, ready to listen intently to the Duchess's next words. Serena, her eyes sparkling with interest, asked Lorne if she knew where Ricardo was at present. After receiving a reply from Lorne, Serena inwardly resolutely rose from her seat. She was ready to go to the imperial palace where she thought Ricardo lurked. Lorne, dumbfounded by such a decisive act, didn't understand the reason for the rush. Serena, smiling as if she were playing her own private chess game, told Lorne that she intended to accept Ricardo's proposal. And so, in this intriguing twist, fates intertwined, and Duchess Serena made her way to the imperial palace, where the decision of her fate and Ricardo's hung in the air like an unknown spell. In the palace, in a beautiful atmosphere filled with the smell of luxury and excitement, Eric, a splendid gentleman, decided to inquire of Serena, a mysterious-looking beauty, about what was being heard around. He innocently asked, despite the billiard ball flying off into the corner, if it was true that her attention had been drawn to Prince Ricardo, whose appearance radiated the light of nobility and power. Serena, sitting on the corner of the pool table with a smile on her face, admirably suggested that she hadn't expected her idea of intimacy with Ricardo to find approval in Eric's eyes. Playing along with the cue ball, which rolled aptly down the green cloth, Eric only asserted that he had no intention of objecting to his friend's decisions. Stepping to his full height, he sighed suggestively and noted with ease that Serena was free to cancel the engagement or break the bonds of marriage anyway. And yet he expressed his willingness to support this turn of events. Eric, still a fine gentleman, clearly expressed his joy at this. However, a surprised Serena, assured of Eric's agreement, couldn't help but wonder why such joy, especially since her own partner Ricardo had just been approved by her for the big step. In response to that question, Eric simply noted that he would not have interfered with Serena's engagement because he realized that he had no power to change her decision. It was a statement emphasized by his understanding that the real freedom of choice lay in Serena's hands. Serena, stunned by this statement, couldn't help but wonder why Eric was so happy. Thoth only emphasized that it's her lack of heart that causes her emotions to dim every day, and if she needs marriage to be closer to where she'll find her heart, then Eric agrees. So be it. Deftly infusing drama into every word, Eric declared that there is more to this marriage than just the union of two hearts. There's a search for real life, a revitalization of those emotions that seem to be frozen in Serena's soul. Eric, with sadness in his heart, worried about Serena, fearing that she would never feel that magical power of love. However, his concern was broken by Serena's sudden statement. She remembered with a smile that she had no feelings even for Ricardo. Undaunted in his concern, Eric wondered if she was lying, if she still had some secret feelings for Ricardo. Serena, deep in thought, slowly responded that perhaps there really was no turning back. Then she suddenly expressed her unusual idea, saying that she had a request for Eric, and perhaps it might be somewhat unpleasant. Eric, without losing his composure, confidently declared that he was ready to fulfill her every wish. Serena leaned over Eric's ear and whispered her request. The next moment, however, Eric sharply pushed her away from him, denouncing her as a lunatic who had refused a request he didn't think was worthy of consideration. It was an outright refusal, revealing the unacceptability of what Serena had suggested. Serena stood at the entrance to Prince Ricardo's chambers, her musings transformed into a whirlwind of thoughts dancing through her mind like a masquerade waltz. An important decision lay before her, and she plunged into the depths of her thoughts. Suddenly, the heavy doors creaked open majestically, as if entering another world. Prince Ricardo emerged from the darkness, smiling a welcoming smile like a star in the night sky. Without waiting to be given her way, Serena entered the room with determination. She thought about how the servants should have performed the ritual, but Ricardo greeted her with open doors, as if to make it clear that in his world there was no room for formality. The prince greeted Serena openly, and her heart visibly quickened its dance. "Prince Ricardo," she muttered, not concealing her irritation, "is it not the servants who are not fit to open doors?" The prince smiled back, noticing that Serena was keeping to the mood and making entering his abode an informal occasion. "I don't like having too many faces around," he replied, looking around the room as if he could find the answer in her decorations. "It probably doesn't please you either, does it?" Serena nodded in agreement, realizing that they shared views on social customs. Serena recounted an embarrassing situation at the ball when she had inadvertently hit the butler while trying to swat a fly. The prince confirmed that he, too, had encountered similar situations. It seemed that behind these walls of the palace, there were many unbelievable events that ordinary people had no idea about. After a brief conversation, Serena sat down on the luxurious couch, exuding sophistication and determination. "I'm here tonight because of our misunderstanding at the ball," she announced, as if starting a new chapter in their story. Ricardo, maintaining his unwavering confidence, noted that he realized how sudden his marriage proposal had sounded. The prince's gaze was filled with the kind of sincere understanding that softens the most difficult situations. He offered to draw up a marriage contract to work out all the terms and details so that both could clearly understand what to expect from each other in this union. Serena was amazed that Ricardo was so rational even in this matter. There was a look of astonished awe in her eyes. Unexpectedly, the prince opened the veil of his terms, saying that if she decided to have a lover, he would not mind and would bear such a decision patiently, so as not to interfere with her freedom. That statement made her feel uncomfortable, like a bitter taste. She glanced at Ricardo, wondering why she wanted such a marriage. Involuntarily, her thoughts became muddled in a fog of questions as she wondered who Ricardo saw in her. Serena felt disgusted at the idea that her spouse would tolerate a lover for the sake of her freedom. The answers she sought began to directly contradict her own ideas about marriage. Serena sighed and said that she agreed to Ricardo's terms, even though she cared. Her questions still hung in the air, but she wanted some answers. She questioned what the prince would gain by marrying her and what his primary purpose in doing so was. Serena longed to understand how she fit into Ricardo's world and what value she brought to his life. Serena, as if revealing the veil of intrigue, expressed her suspicions that Ricardo might be conspiring with the queen and have ulterior motives against her. Her words sounded like lightning tearing through the dark night and hung over the room like an uncertain sign. Ricardo, however, remained calm despite the unexpected accusatory tone. Serena approached the prince and took his chin with her fingers, as if she wanted to read the answers to her questions in his eyes. "Hadn't you better revenge yourself on me rather than marry me?" she uttered with a touch of caution, as if anticipating the storm that might break out if she accepted his proposal. Her words sounded like a warning that she was releasing Ricardo from something dark and incomprehensible. However, the prince responded with a tenderness that dissolved the coldness of the air. He declared that he did not wish to take revenge on Serena, but rather still remembered the day he had first laid eyes on her. The fire of sincerity burned in his eyes, revealing the secret of his heart. Serena was struck by this unexpected side of Ricardo. She had never expected such purity of feeling. But then she asked a question that broke new ground in their conversation. Serena was astonished to learn that the latest social event was not Ricardo's first encounter with her. The prince, with an unspeakable look in his eyes, admitted that he had fallen in love with Serena the day she had, like a whirlwind, destroyed his kingdom. That answer was like a key that opened the door to understanding how he perceived her role in his life and what value she brought to his world. The majestic walls of the palace reflected the flickering candlelight, creating an atmosphere of mystery and grandeur. Serena, radiant with majestic beauty, towered before the ambassador as if she were the embodiment of power and steadfastness. The ambassador bowed before her like a saint before an altar, bearing words of succor from the kingdom of Erin. And then, in his hands, a heart-shaped crystal shone, symbolizing the power of the dragon, the ancient treasure, the pride and strength of Erin. He was an offer of submission before Serena's power, but the queen's gaze did not light up with delight. Instead of accepting this majestic dragon heart as a sacrifice, Serena looked at him with a lack of delight and joy. To the messenger, it was like a storm cloud breaking the harmony of a clear vault of heaven. How could such a splendid gift be so unappreciated? The ambassador, drowned in his own thoughts, considered such a reaction a national insult. After all, the dragon heart was more than just an artifact. It was a shrine, and Serena didn't seem to appreciate the sacrificial gift. Serena took the crystal in her steady hand, and for a moment she thought it was truly enchanting. The next second, however, her determination changed the course of events. The dragon's heart shattered into crystal shards, like a dream shattering into cold reality. It was a sudden and shocking gesture that stunned everyone present in the palace's ceremonial halls. At that moment, the deceased crystal shards shone brightly like stars in the heavens, but also carried a deviation from the proposed alliance. The palace fell silent, as if holding its breath. Serena showed her steadfastness by taking not only the broken shards of the dragon's heart, but also the fate she herself was building in this magical world. From that moment, a new chapter in a history full of intrigue and mystery began, and all eyes turned to the queen, whose decisions determined the fate of the entire kingdom. Rivers of tears flowed down the weary face of the messenger, as if the rain had refreshed the suffering earth. His weeping was not only an expression of pain, but also a farewell to the purity of the dragon's heart, which seemed to him a holy gem. His eyes reflected sadness for the lost treasure, which was not only a precious substance, but also a symbol of hope. Eric, standing nearby, tried to calm the distressed messenger, saying that Serena had acted inadvertently. His words were an attempt to support the belief that the destruction of the dragon's heart was not a deliberate act. Nevertheless, the messenger's tears mingled with the storm of emotion, and Eric's words fell on a soul washed by waves of sorrow. At this time, Ricardo, who had been watching from the shadows, realized that the moment he had longed for had arrived. The smile that stretched lazily across his face indicated that he was not seeing things the way most people did. For him, the destruction of the Queen's laboratory, where he had suffered agonizingly, was like a release from the shackles of a curse. The fire of change sparkled in his eyes, and he silently noted that, regardless of Serena's true intentions, her act had brought about irreversible change. The laboratory where his soul had experienced endless agony was now in ruins, like a castle from childhood maps destroyed by an explosion of imagination. Ricardo realized that his kingdom, cursed and dark, was now meeting its sunset, and he found something liberating in that moment. It was as if the wings of the darkness lurking in his heart had become glittering feathers of freedom. At that moment, when Ricardo made his decision, he was immersed in a whirlpool of his emotions, anxieties, and inner contradictions. Fate, like a swirling whirlwind, had brought him together with Serena, and he realized that from now on his heart did not belong to himself, but remained in the grip of magic, mysterious and inexplicable. Ricardo met Serena's gaze, and as if in an instant, they both plunged into a bottomless sea of feelings. He confided in her that perhaps love had been born at the very moment she'd burst into his world like an element, changing it forever. And now, in this moment of truth, Ricardo looked resolutely into Serena's eyes, as if trying to find in them the answers to all the questions of his existence. Serena, for her part, met his words with a look of incredulity, but gradually a spark of understanding flickered in her eyes. She invited Ricardo to sit down next to her on the cozy sofa, where candles danced in a dance of shadows, like a harbinger of unknown events. Ricardo smiled and immersed himself in her story, as compelling as a good novel. And that's when Ricardo suddenly claimed another secret reason that motivated him to serve Serena. His heart desired to become a trophy in the hands of this mysterious woman. He wished she would accept him into her world, to travel together to Arena, where her heart was hidden. This unusual request wafted through the air like a magical melody, awakening Serena's sense of vocation and responsibility. This was the beginning of a new chapter in their journey together, where Ricardo and Serena's relationship was transformed into an exciting story full of unexpected twists and turns and mysterious discoveries. In this story of passion and magic, they set out together in search of a lost heart, ready to overcome all odds for the sake of love and the restoration of a lost kingdom. When Ricardo revealed to Serena his dreams of a future full of happiness and ideal prospects, his soul seemed to turn into a flame of delight. In his imagination, he saw himself next to Serena in a land where magic permeates every corner and love heals even the deepest wounds. Serena, for her part, listened to Ricardo's words with a smile on her lips. She liked this reason that brought him to her side, not just as a hero, but as a man willing to sacrifice his past for their shared future. And, as if the key to this new chapter, Serena decided to give him her special nickname, Rico, like a drop of intimacy in a vast ocean of magic. Something more serious flashed in her eyes, however, when she suddenly stated her condition. She asked Rico not to fall in love with her, claiming that such feelings could become burdensome. At that moment, the air in the room froze, as if the magic of a hard decision was left hanging in the air. Rico nodded in acquiescence, as if to emphasize his willingness to submit his feelings to this unusual agreement. So, they became the heroes of their own marvelous fairy tale, where love, magic, and conditions became the incredible ingredients in this exciting affair. Arena was ahead of them, full of mystery and danger, but they were ready to conquer all obstacles to meet their destiny in each other's arms. Serena and Rico, like allies in an incredible adventure, exchanged a handshake, symbolizing their agreement to embark on a difficult journey together. In that moment, it seemed as if the whole world could be loyal to them if they stuck together. Suddenly, Serena suggested that they begin wedding preparations, like a sudden attraction that surged into the air, surrounding them with magical sparks. Rico agreed with a smile, realizing that this day, which had started with an ordinary decision to return a lost heart, had turned into a page in a fairy tale story of love and adventure. Sometime later, Serena, full of admiration, presented the appraiser with the mysterious gem that the king had retrieved from his own crown. The purple stone, known as the legendary Dragon's Eye of Arina, seemed to hold the magic of the world itself in the glow of its facets. The appraiser, enthusiastically immersed in the study of the gem, exclaimed about its greatness and rarity. It turned out that this gemstone was not only a symbol of Rico and Serena's love and union, but also a foreshadowing of Arina's future trials and secrets. The king, expressing his displeasure at the extraction process despite his scolding, sent it to Serena as a gift, concealing it in a box as if it were a message of destiny. So continued their amazing story, where the wedding was only the beginning of magical adventures, and the violet eye of the dragon only fueled the atmosphere of mystery and riddles that awaited them in Arina. At this moment, a sense of mystery and uncertainty hung in the air, as if the atmosphere was filled with mystery and anticipation of something wonderful. Serena remembered another gem that came to her from Arina's government after she destroyed the dragon's heart. This dragon eye was another exquisite gift full of magic and mystery. Suddenly, Serena approached the appraiser with a mysterious request. She asked him to put this stone in a modest ring so that no one could guess it. The appraiser was taken aback by this unusual request, and his eyes reflected a question as to why destroy such a beautiful gem. Serena responded by clarifying that the ring was not for her. She was sure Ricardo would love this piece of jewelry. The appraiser was confused by this unexpected request, examining the dragon's violet eye and trying to imagine how it would fit into the engagement ring. At that moment, as if by magic, Ricardo entered the scene. His appearance added a touch of excitement and curiosity to the room. Serena, with a smile on her lips, offered him a glimpse of her exquisite new piece of jewelry. At that moment, a new chapter in their story began, where love and magic intertwined in an incredible dance. Ricardo, with a slight smirk on his face, said a few excited words, asking Serena if she had already had time to make her choice among the precious jewelry. Serena's answer was so unexpected that Ricardo himself seemed startled by this sudden appearance in the jewelry store. Serena, for her part, was dumbfounded and even a little disappointed that Ricardo had shown up here, interfering with her plans. Smiling, Ricardo slowly approached Serena, his gaze fixed on her face. Her eyes reflected a mixture of surprise and disappointment. She reflected on the fact that she had told him to wait, because he would probably blow the whole surprise. However, Serena decided to handle this situation in the best way possible. Suddenly, Serena's words sounded like a note of unexpected harmony. She declared that any ring would look beautiful on Ricardo, and so she decided to purchase every piece of jewelry she could find in that gorgeous store. The salesman's gaze flashed like a lit spark in his eyes, realizing the special couple in front of them. But Ricardo, undaunted by his courtesy, began to insist that it was not necessary. However, Serena said with confidence that this was only a small part of what she could do for her chosen one. Her words sounded like those of the most powerful Duchess in the Empire. Ricardo, slightly embarrassed by this answer, tried to show modesty. Serena exhaled quietly, realizing that the surprise, a special ring encrusted with the eye of the dragon gemstone, would remain a secret to him until the moment of the magical proposal. Ricardo and Serena, like crowned characters in this magnificent scenario, were rolling around in the carriage, immersed in the warmth of the sun's rays that seemed to delicately frame their future happiness. The ambience of the carriage was imbued with an atmosphere of anticipation, as if time itself was slowing down to provide them with moments of enjoyment of this magical journey. Ricardo, generous and noble, did not miss a chance to express his gratitude to Serena for her generosity. The words of gratitude flowed from his lips like a soft wind, gently touching the listener. He admired Serena, her generosity, and offered to shoulder all the costs of organizing the wedding. Serena's response, however, was no less grand as a lady in her palace. She declined the offer, claiming that the imperial family would take care of the event. At this point, a shadow of intrigue suddenly entered their conversation. Ricardo, like a virtuoso artist, suddenly hinted that his outward appearance must be transformed under the shadow of the desperate need for this wedding. In the secluded corners of Ariana's kingdom lurked another pretender to the throne, and Ricardo realized that their union must be not just an act of love, but a testament to strength. He was tasked with breathing into this union a spirit of uncompromising passion and sincere devotion. Serena, like a statue of serenity, answered Ricardo's challenge. She dismissed his words, indicating that wedding planning alone was enough. There was determination in her voice, like a castle protecting their future from enemies. Serena foresaw not only intrigue among the imperial aristocrats, but also other enemies who could put a damper on their happiness. Thus, this story blossomed like a flower, opening its petals in anticipation of a grand event. In every detail of this epic, there was a sparkling thread of intrigue, pure love and nobility that made it irresistible to the viewer immersed in this fascinating world. In the shadow of Ricardo's clue to Serena's disagreement with the aristocracy, there was a melody of sadness, like echoes of bygone times. Ricardo, as if a seasoned diplomat, noted this invisible barrier standing between Serena and her family ties. In response to Ricardo's remark, Serena nodded with a quiet sigh, as if remembering through time the moments of misunderstanding. A sudden flash of genius pierced the air when Ricardo, like an alchemist of secret knowledge, asked a question about the mysterious dragon heart shards. By proposing to use them to create works, he was revealing an extraordinary plan, like a magician creating his own world. Ricardo's words were not only about art, but also about strategy, a proposal to reconcile with foes by means of a gift representing nobility and benevolence. Ricardo saw this not just as a gesture of goodwill, but as a wise move in the game of politics. The distribution of works to the nobility, attached to commendations for their service to the empire, became a kind of magic that could dissolve tensions and turn discontent into favor. The fire of art flickered in his eyes, which, like a ray of light, penetrated the darkest corners of the palace halls. Confident that this plan could build a bridge between Serena and her potential adversaries, Ricardo put a confidence into his words that seemed to strengthen the foundation of wisdom with each sentence. His desire for peace and understanding of mutual interests, like a golden key, unlocked the door to a possible alliance, as if calling the aristocracy to recognize their leader. Serena absorbed Ricardo's words as if inhaling the fragrance of the flowers of a spring garden. Her thoughts slowed like the smooth waves of the ocean, and suddenly, laughing a light, musical chuckle, she said that she couldn't imagine a more beautiful destiny than to be his wife. Her words were like a magic sound in the silence, like a melody that captures the soul. Ricardo, smiling, answered her that despite their deep feelings, the ceremony had not yet taken place. And at that moment, the carriage rolled past the window, revealing a view of splendid scenery, like the paintings of a marvelous artist. Ricardo, looking at this picturesque image, could not help but remark that perhaps he should let the servants discuss the forthcoming wedding. Like a picture painted by a master, the castle stretched out before them, and in the distance stretched green meadows and fields of flowers. Ricardo, gazing at this delightful view, added that they could rant as long as they liked, for rumors were more powerful than even the most formidable lightning. Suddenly, his eyes were drawn to the many gifts hung outside the carriage like gems glittering in the sunlight. Ricardo, stunned by this wealth, was surprised to note that this would be another occasion for conversation. Serena, with a smile that rested on her lips like the light touch of a spring breeze, emphasized that gifts were also part of aristocratic life, and in that moment Ricardo realized that her wisdom and experience were far deeper than he had realized. Serena noted with a slight irony in her voice that in the world of high society, creating rumors was becoming an integral part of rituals and games. Ricardo, a little embarrassed, only chuckled in response, as if acknowledging that aristocratic intrigue was still somewhat of a mystery to him. Sometime later, Serena was wandering the spacious corridors of the palace, apologizing for the unexpected visit. The butler, with discretion and a smile, assured her that Mrs. Serena was always welcome. On the way, she remembered how Ricardo had recently been invited to a lover's poetry evening, and she couldn't help but marvel at how quickly he had adapted to this sophisticated way of life in imperial society. When they finally reached the right room, Serena, barely crossing the threshold, heard the guy's excited yell accusing Ricardo of a devious plan involving an impending marriage. Guy expressed his doubts, unsure if Ricardo craved Serena's love or was merely seeking status. Ricardo, with a peaceful smile, enjoyed his tea and calmly stated that he had never once cheated on Serena. He expressed the thought that the guy's statements could be interpreted as contemptuous of Serena, but his words sounded like a slight hint of his own calmness and honesty. The boy, startled by Ricardo's claims, began to mumble, trying to justify himself and explain that he was only aiming for Serena. At this time, Serena coughed quietly behind the closed door, not wanting to interfere with the conversation, but her presence did not go unnoticed by Ricardo. His draconic hearing detected her presence with ease, like a dragon's keen senses that allowed him to discern the slightest sounds. Serena, realizing that Ricardo had noticed her presence, began to quietly praise his hearing. At that moment, Ricardo, with eyes full of sincerity, declared that he and Serena had the same feelings, that they had fallen in love at first sight. With some embarrassment, he admitted that her kindness and gentleness had not left his heart indifferent. These sincere words only irritated the guy across the hall, who was about to express his anger. The guy could barely contain himself, and if he and Ricardo had been face to face, he would have screamed. And at that moment, Serena entered the room like a majestic queen and announced that she was going to take Ricardo with her. Her voice sounded like a warm, melodious wind that cut through any doubt. Serena, with an apologetic look, turned to Lady Fursh, apologizing for interrupting the literary evening, and invited her to join them at her residence. Lady Fursha, a noble and well-bred lady, graciously agreed, expressing her understanding and openness to the unexpected circumstances. Lady Feversha, without concealing her surprise, asked on what occasion Serena was going to hold a meeting at her residence. In response to this question, Serena smiled and talked about the upcoming ball she would throw in honor of her engagement to Ricardo. Serena's words made a great impression on the minds of everyone present. Lady Fursha looked at the bride-to-be with interest and witnessed not only the grand announcement, but also a display of Serena's outstanding organizational skills. Serena specified that the ball would be held in a week's time at her delightful estate, like a coronation of love and union. This evening promised to be an event that would be talked about for years to come, and Serena, like the organizer of a great theater, was already anticipating the moment when her estate would be filled with splendor and joy, and the hearts of her guests would be captivated by the whirlwind of passion and magic of this special evening. Running to Serena, Marina's personal designer was expressing her heartfelt congratulations in a light swirl of elegance, hinting at the upcoming exciting event, the wedding. Her eyes sparkled with admiration like stars in the heavens. Serena, radiant with happiness, accepted the warm words of congratulations and introduced Marina to her future spouse, Ricardo. Her voice sounded like the music of the evening as she introduced her lover. Marina curtsied gracefully in response, promising that under her faux feather, the costume for Ricardo at the upcoming ball would be the epitome of brilliance and sophistication. She smiled with a wry, mocking look, thinking about the fact that what she had in her hands were not just fabrics and threads, but tools that created magic. Marina, squinting her eyes in appreciation of the future outfit, smiled with satisfaction. In her hands was not just work, it was art, and her model, Ricardo, was the perfect canvas for creating this splendor. Suddenly, Serena shattered Marina's fervor by announcing that the ball was only a week away. Instead of despairing, however, Marina, like a fashion wizard, only became more fired up. She responded with an instant burst of enthusiasm, declaring that she was capable of picking out the most fashionable, exquisite, and masterpiece suit for Sir Ricardo in just a week. With these words, Marina not only surprised Serena with her determination, but also confused Ricardo himself. At that moment, when Ricardo had not yet had time to fully realize the meaning of Marina's words, she had already surrounded him, measuring his parameters with a professional glance. Then, with the same sudden impulse, she rushed into the uncharted expanse of the world of fabrics and materials to find the perfect elements to create something truly unique. So began the dizzying pursuit of an idea, and every moment spent searching for it only intensified the inner fire of creativity in Marina. Ricardo suddenly asked Serena why she had decided to prematurely announce their engagement. Serena, embarrassed by this unexpected question, admitted that it had indeed happened suddenly. She clarified that she had decided to take this step based on Ricardo's advice. Serena, with a look full of feeling and tenderness, admitted that after sending gifts to the aristocrats, as advised by her lover, she received many positive responses. In her determination to act quickly, she saw an opportunity for the aristocrats to continue to admire her, and so she made the decision to announce her engagement. There was a glint of romance in her eyes and a certainty that this step was the right one. Returning suddenly, Marina caught Ricardo's attention with her unexpected appearance. Her invitation sounded like a mantra, urging him to follow her. As Ricardo turned to look around the room, his eyes caught on something surprising. There was an unimaginable number of costumes. They all appeared before him as a plethora of potential options for the ball, and he had to conduct a real costume survey to find the one outfit that would be his calling card for the upcoming event. Sometime later, while Ricardo was absorbed in the fitting, Serena entered the room, eating her liver and pondering what the day would bring. Her gaze glanced around the light-filled room, where each costume, as if embodying a piece of magic, beckoned to its future wearer. Serena, despite the great expense, selflessly bought from Marina all the costumes that Ricardo had just had time to try on. It was a kind of investment in the magic of the future ball. The indomitable passion for TV shows and movies that had haunted Serena in her mundane life now seemed to find its fulfillment in this medieval realm. As she picked out her costumes, episodes from her favorite shows replayed in her head, and each new dress or gown became a kind of art object for her. Even in anticipation of the wedding, Serena did not forget that in addition to preparing for the celebration, she must maintain her passion for filmmaking. Suddenly, her attention was caught by Ricardo coming out of the fitting room in his new suit. Serena's gaze was full of admiration. Ricardo seemed incredibly stylish in his new outfit, like a hero from a fairy tale taking a step into the real world. Serena remained silent, her eyes filled with indescribable gratitude. She couldn't find the words to express the harmony she felt when she saw Ricardo in that perfect suit. Marina, in turn, felt proud and satisfied. In all her years of creative activity in the field of design, this was the first time that her work had found such an echo in someone's eyes. Her heart rejoiced to see Ricardo, like a king in his ceremonial attire, viewing her creation. Ricardo, grateful and delighted with the model, did not forget to mention Serena's importance in the process. Among the shiny fabrics and many accessories, he stated that it was Serena's magic that gave the suit its luster and glamour, that she had touched every detail like a fairy, transforming ordinary matter into a work of art. His eyes sparkled with delight, and words of gratitude flew toward Serena like light petals of wind. But Ricardo sensed that something was missing from this magnificent composition. Being an art historian and connoisseur of beauty, he noted that he needed a final touch, something that would emphasize his image and make it unique. And suddenly Serena, as if reading his thoughts, turned to Marina. Serena, glowing with an inner light of satisfaction, pulled a brightly colored ring from her purse. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry, but the final element that would complete Ricardo's look. Serena handed it to Marina gratefully and had it attached to one of Ricardo's fingers. This final touch added its own note of mystery and luxury to an already gorgeous outfit. As Ricardo put on the engagement ring, he admired the purple dragon's eye gem that caught his eye and gave his image incredible depth. Ricardo, like a sad melody, expressed his feelings by declaring that he was unable to accept the ring. A shadow of sadness darkened his gaze, and his words sounded like a sentence. Serena, in response, gazed silently into his eyes, trying to unravel the meaning of what had happened. The moment became heavy and filled with inner tension. Upon reflection, Serena realized that perhaps the ring carried too much symbolic meaning for their arranged marriage. In her mosaic of her own thoughts, the contours of the future flickered, and she realized that this gesture might be too drastic a step in their relationship. Serena wondered if the act could be a stumbling block on their path to happiness, constrained by the rules of the contract. Serena, mortified that her idea was not so understood, suggested a compromise. If the ring was a problem for Ricardo, let it be a kind of down payment for her help in creating a unique image. The gesture was a kind of compromise between formality and their own feelings. Serena then turned to Marina, wanting her opinion of the ring. In response to a question about its appearance, Marina confirmed its charm and said with certainty that Prince Ricardo was sure to outshine everyone at the ball. At this point, Ricardo stood silent, feeling almost on the sidelines, hurt by the words that the ring was just a fee. In the gloomy halls of Serena's estate, the footsteps of the coming evening sounded, and suddenly this whole cascade of events in the life of the main character, Ricardo, turned into a mysterious story full of intrigue and unexpected turns. Gossip and mystery could lurk in every costume, and every detail of the chosen outfit could be the key to unraveling the mystery. Serena, the majestic mistress of the manor, invited Ricardo to stay the night. The manor, shrouded in mystery and an atmosphere of mystery, as if inviting the hero to forget his worries and immerse himself in a world of mysteries and surprises. But something troubled Ricardo. Like an invisible shadow sliding along the walls of the manor, their gazes were filled with unspoken thoughts and unresolved riddles. Serena, sensing Ricardo's anxiety, decided to reveal her cards and find out what really lurked in the young man's soul. He agreed to the delay, but his gaze was somewhere far away, as if he were unraveling the ciphers of his own emotions. Serena, witty and empathetic, couldn't resist asking, "Are you okay? You don't look like anything happened." Ricardo, as if in the clouds of his thoughts, replied that everything was fine, though his eyes said otherwise. It was as if he were hiding something much deeper. Suddenly the conversation turned to costumes, and Ricardo voiced his dissatisfaction. He was not happy with the transformation and the images, and shadows of disappointment flickered in his gaze. Serena, for the first time that evening, faced an obstacle in her plans. But then suddenly the surge of excitement and uncertainty was replaced by another whirlwind of events. Serena remembered the need to choose a gift for His Majesty, and the fire of inspiration flashed in her eyes. She remembered her obligation to give him something magnificent that would surprise and amaze him. However, she declared that she would never give it to him. However, like a mystery book, each page turned with new mysteries. Serena, immersed in thoughts of the gift, suddenly remembered her relationship with Eric. And then something unexpected happened that completely changed the atmosphere in the manor. "Nothing will happen between Eric and me," Serena suddenly said, like an echo of distant echoes of ghostly castles. This unexpected statement broke the harmony of the moment, spurring a new wave of mysteries and unsolved stories. Apparently, something happened between Serena and Eric in the past that completely changed the outlook of their relationship. Thus, the night at Serena's estate turned into a real kaleidoscope of events, where every detail, whether it was a costume, a gift, or unspoken words, became the key to unlocking secrets and turning the wheel of fate. A dark shroud of misunderstanding enveloped the manor like a night fog over a mysterious forest. Ricardo, faced with the unexpected turn of events, found no words to express his feelings. A shadow of mysterious drama lay in the silence, as if a new, uncharted chapter had begun in Ricardo's world. Serena, as if reading Ricardo's unspoken thoughts, exclaimed that she understood what he was going through. Her words sounded like a gentle touch to the soul, but they were followed by a strange twist. She assured him that he needn't worry about the marriage contract, as if in this world decisions and promises were only part of a larger mystery. And then, when everything seemed to be fading into the darkness of incomprehension, Serena suddenly left behind words, like a small wisp of magical veil that lifts up, revealing secrets. "I'm not attracted to Eric." Her phrase hung in the air like a glowing thread leading to uncharted distances. Ricardo, despite the concern and confusion inside him, decided not to show his emotions. The moment Serena lifted her plume of puzzlement and walked away, as if locked in the world of his thoughts, He placed his hand resolutely against the door through which she was disappearing. Now, in the semi-darkness of a room filled with mystical echoes and untold secrets, Ricardo whispered in Serena's ear. His voice sounded mysterious, as if he were reaching into the very depths of her mind. "And do you, Serena, find me attractive?" The question was thrown into the dark abyss between them, as if an unknown force maintained an atmosphere of intrigue and mystery, and Ricardo, like an actor in a theater, continued to play his mysterious part in the story. In front of them hung a mysterious door, like a portal to an unknown world, and at that moment, as if at the climax of a drama, their gazes intertwined in a daring fight. Serena, as if she were the mistress of secrets, took Ricardo by the chin, holding him in her eyes. At the moment of her touch, the whole atmosphere was filled with magic, like a spell that brought their mutual attraction to life. And then Serena declared firmly that she liked Ricardo. Smiling as if she were opening the last leaf of a mysterious book, she proclaimed him to be the ideal in her eyes. Ricardo, somewhat confused, met her confession by replying that he was very pleased if his appearance met expectations. However, like an unexpected feather in the tail, something hit Serena. Her words that she wasn't so callous as to appreciate only the wrapping dotted the eyes of this secret story. As they quietly went their separate rooms, like characters in a novel, they left behind traces of unspoken feelings and many unsolved mysteries. So ended the evening at Serena's estate, like a page in an exciting book, leaving the viewer waiting for the next chapter. With the door closed behind her, Serena felt her chest rise and fall in unison with her breathing. Meeting Ricardo had triggered something in her heart that was hard to describe in words. Confusion mixed with excitement, and secret feelings soared like birds freed from a cage. The next morning, the sounds of steel blades rang through the estate like a magical symphony of martial arts. Serena and Ricardo, like two waltz dancers, met on the battlefield for sword sparring. The sweeps of their blades created airy patterns, and their bodies were mere shadows in this dueling duel. Serena, with a morning glow in her eyes, declared that now that they were married, training would become part of their daily lives. Angrily swinging her sword, she emphasized that the forces of unknown magic had bound them in marriage, and now every day would be filled with training and combat skills. Ricardo, despite the morning drowsiness in his eyes, replied with full willingness to train around the clock if that was Serena's will. And then, as if performing an aerial dance, Serena suddenly disappeared before his eyes. She soared through the air like grace in flight, doing a beautiful somersault. Doing another graceful somersault, she swung her blade like a shadow, preparing to attack. The next moment, her sword was only a few centimeters from Ricardo's neck, lying on the ground. The winner of the sparring match looked down at her defeated opponent from the heights of her skill and told him to get up. Thus, even in training battles, they continued to weave their story like two dancers in the rhythm of love and martial art, where each blade strike became a new step in this magnificent dance. A sudden moment interrupted the beautifully choreographed bout, as if a dark shadow had disturbed the bright picture. Serena's eyes, like an artist's, noticed the cut on Ricardo's cheek from which blood dripped. Ricardo, showing his coolness, only wiped the blood away with his hand, considering it an accidental misunderstanding during the fight. Serena, concern sparkling in her eyes, took Ricardo by the chin, apologizing for the unfortunate blow. Her voice sounded like a caring chant, but she absently remarked that perhaps Ricardo should have been more vigilant. The smirk on Ricardo's face, however, indicated that he didn't seem too worried about his injury. Ricardo, standing in front of Serena, looked extremely satisfied. This dissection seemed to give his image even more masculinity and firmness. At this moment, he was not just the hero of a romantic story, but a real warrior, capable of taking on challenges even in training fights. Serena, looking at Ricardo's satisfied face, silently complained in her thoughts. She didn't want Ricardo's beautiful face to be hurt, for it was the look that had become near and dear to her. For the sake of this face, which became their guiding star in their journey together, she wished to avoid all sorts of troubles and dark shadows that could overshadow their bright union. So continued this extraordinary story, where every moment was full of emotion and every fight became a new step in their magnificent dance. A sudden visit from the butler, carrying a letter in his hand, like a wind of change, blew into their cozy world. Serena, holding her breath, accepted the scroll from the butler and eagerly opened it in anticipation of a response to her invitation. At the same time, Ricardo, immersed in his own hopes, also expected Eric to respond to the invitation and come. However, disappointment unknowingly crept in the moment the letter was opened. Serena's face, so eager to see Eric, now reflected sadness and disappointment. Her hopes were crumbling like a house of cards, leaving only a sense of loss and unfulfilled expectations. Serena, as if determined to get rid of the source of her frustration, took the letter in her hand and, like a sorceress, poured her blue flame over it. The letter burned slowly, turning to ash. The dreamy light of the blue flames reflected in her eyes, like a reflection of fading hopes. "Invited him out of courtesy anyway," Serena said with cool confidence as the ashes fell to the floor. At that moment, Ricardo, standing in the shadows, watched her. His eyes expressed mixed feelings, understanding, and a desire to comfort, mixed with the unspoken pain of watching her heart break into pieces. At that very moment, however, Serena led the butler aside and ordered him to write a reply on her behalf. So, like a great lady, she found the strength to take in the course of events again, building her story, even if it had unexpected twists and turns. And though Serena's heart may have sounded a sad tune, she was ready to continue her journey, for there were many more mysteries and adventures ahead of them. The shadows of the evening light grew heavier as Serena motioned for Ricardo to return to the palace. She herself felt her home castle calling to her, with its splendor and mysterious atmosphere. The offer to return to familiar ground was also an invitation to return to a familiar routine, to those moments when every step was well known. Ricardo's response, however, was so unemotional that it was as if it was frozen in the air. He bid her farewell without too much emotion, leaving a strange tang of uncertainty in the air. "I'll meet you at the ball." His words echoed in the silence, and he walked away like a ghost, disappearing into the night. Serena, looking at Ricardo walking away, was perplexed. Her eyes, full of questions, followed him as he walked away. What made him do that? Why wouldn't he want to return to the palace with her? These questions thickened in the air like clouds before a storm, and Serena stood there, uncomprehending and feeling a certain uneasiness in her heart. Thus, a new mystery arose between them, like another page of an uncharted story waiting to be unraveled. The ball, which had seemed a promise of meeting, was now a place of waiting and questioning. The setting sun, like an artist's brush, painted the sky with shades of fire, showering the luxurious palace with golden rays. The shining light penetrated through the marble windows, creating a soft harmony of shades and shadows inside the room. In this magical atmosphere, Ricardo snuggled on the sofa. The luxurious fabrics, softness, and comfort seemed to envelop him, making him feel as if the sofa itself had been created for noble relaxation. Ricardo's gaze was lost in the ceiling carvings, and the fatigue of his training gradually gave way to calmness and relaxation. At this moment, the inner palace, like a witness to eras gone by, slowed down time, making it feel like every moment here was magical. Wrapped in luxury and silence, Ricardo enjoyed a moment of peace, like a forgotten lord of his time. So the setting sun, as if enclosing this moment in its gentle embrace, illuminated the luxury and tranquility of the inner palace, where time flowed slowly, like an age-old river carrying away in its waters the traces of days gone by.